Hello and welcome to Get Decked, the video series where I make budget Magic the Gathering decks for your casual games night and to introduce friends and family members to the game. We're carrying on with the Duskmourn decks here, so in this one we're going to look at a deck called I'm Not Crazy, which is a red and green deck. So let's take a look at the rules for Get Decked first before we look at the deck itself. So these decks are 60 cards, they're designed for 1v1 games. We're only using Duskmourn cards for this deck. It's mostly commons and uncommons, no cards that cost more than $2 at time of recording. We limit ourselves to 12 different non-land cards for a good mix of variety and consistency. Strong themes, low to mid complexity, so it's accessible for new or casual players. But just because it's casual doesn't mean the deck has to be weak or bad. So let's take a look at the deck list. So we've got 21 creatures, we've got 6 instants, 9 sorceries, and 24 land, and we've got a whole mana curve off to the side there. So let's take a look at the deck and see what's actually in it and see how it plays. So first we're going to talk about how we're winning. So we're in red-green, so as you can probably expect, it's fairly standard red-green aggro, attack with big creatures, win via combat damage, have some buff spells, have some burn spells, pretty standard iconic red-green stuff. However, a bit of a spin on this in the fact that in Duskmourn, the red-green draft archetype was all about delirium, which is a keyword we've had a few years before in the second time we went to Innistrad, Shadows of Innistrad, and it's back here and I think done a lot better than it was last time. So let's look at Balustrade Worm first. So 3 in double green for a 5/5. Can't be countered, has trample and haste. Right off the bat, I think just a really good solid creature anyway. And then it has this delirium ability. So delirium is an ability that triggers when you have 4 or more card types amongst cards in your graveyard. So basically, in the deck, obviously the card types are artifact, creature, enchantment, land, instant, sorcery, all that kind of stuff. So as long as you have 4 different types in your graveyard, you are considered to have delirium. You are delirious. So Balustrade Worm's delirium ability is you can pay 2 and double green. You can return it from your graveyard back to the battlefield with a finality counter on it. A finality counter means that if it dies again, it gets exiled instead. And it's say activate only if there are 4 or more card types amongst cards in your graveyard and only as a sorcery. So a really fun way of make sure we get delirious faster is using cards that have multiple card types, and that's why we have stuff like Wildfire Wickerfolk. So Wildfire Wickerfolk is a red and green for a 3/2 with haste, which again, just a good card on its own, like a 3/2 with haste for 2, nice, a fast, aggressive creature. But it's an artifact creature, which means if it dies, if it's in your graveyard, you are halfway to delirium because it is 2 types. It's an artifact and a creature. Which is really, really clever, actually. I really like how it's been designed. And it has a delirium ability as well. It gets +1/+1, has trample as long as you're delirious. So potentially dropping this for 2 mana and it being a 4/3 with haste and trample is very, very strong. So delirium I would say it's not the strategy of the deck. It's more like a nice bonus. Like we're not, I think, trying too hard to get delirium. I say it's not essential to make the deck work. You can just attack with big red-green creatures. But if you do get delirium off, then obviously a lot of these cards get a lot better. But it's not essential. All right, so just want to make that clear. So yeah, I think these are 2 really good cards to start off by looking at. Balustrade Worm, I think, I say even without that delirium ability, it's just a really big, solid, chunky creature, and the fact it can come back again for another swing is really nice. The fact it's got haste as well, so you can reanimate it and it can immediately swing. Oh, it's really, really good. So let's look at some other cards. So we've also got 3 Altanak the Thrice Called. I could not include this card, and it's the other goofy card that goes with it because man, it's so fun and goofy, and it's just all about what I'm trying to do with this series of casual deck building. So Altanak is 5 and double green for a 9/9 with trample. Big stompy creature anyway, who doesn't like that? Whenever it becomes targeted by a spell or ability an opponent controls, you get to draw a card. Actually seeing this happen quite a lot now on big green creatures. I think this was an ability in Thunder Junction. There was the Cacturantula, which had this ability as well. When it gets targeted, it gets you get to draw a card. So it's a really nice kind of insurance. So like even an opponent targets it like to kill it, you still get a card draw out of it, which is still okay. And it's also got this. I'd say it's honestly quite a niche ability. Honestly, it's 1 in the green. You discard it to return a land from your graveyard to the battlefield tapped. So we do obviously have some ways of milling to try and hit delirium. We have a few ways of sacrificing lands as well. So Altanak can get stuff back, and there is sort of a very slow, janky engine, which we'll discuss in a little bit. But yeah, just a big 9/9 trample with a little bit of insurance if he gets targeted. And then we've got 3 Wickerfolk Thresher, so 3 in your green for a 5/4. Another artifact creature, so again, if it dies, if it's in your graveyard, you're halfway to delirium. When it attacks, if you're delirious, you look at the top card of your library. If it's a land, it goes straight onto the battlefield. Doesn't say tapped either, which is really, really strong. And if you don't put it onto the battlefield, you put it into hand. So it's every time it attacks, if you're delirious, it's like a growth spiral effect, I think is the effect, or coiling oracle, like one of those Simic effects. Really, really good. That's either an extra land drop or just straight up draw a card. I think on a 4 mana body, and it's also a 5/4. I think that's really, really good. I really like Wickerfolk Thresher. Again, this is obviously a card where Delirium is doing a lot of the heavy lifting. I think again, without the Delirium, I think it's fine as just a 5/4 for 4. Like that's okay, but obviously Delirium makes it so much better. Right, and then we've got a whole bunch of other kind of artifact and enchantment creatures here again, which helps us get to Delirium quicker. So we've got 3 piggy banks, 1 red for 3/2. When it dies, you make a treasure token. That's absolutely fine. Again, nice aggressive creature, gives you something when it dies. We've got 3 fear of being hunted, so 1 double red for a 4/2 with haste, and it must be blocked if able. So it is kind of like a janky removal spell, like it has to be blocked. It's got 4 power, which is really nice. It can probably kill whatever's going to block it. But it's only got 2 toughness, which means it's more likely to die, which is fine because then we want it in the graveyard where it's an enchantment creature. It counts as two types for being delirious. So again, nice little kind of inbuilt synergy there. I really like it. And then 3 grasping long neck, 2 in a green for a 4/2 with reach. And when it dies, again, it's only got 2 toughness, so that's fairly likely. You get 2 life, so you get a little bit of life gain. And again, it's in the graveyard where we want it, where it can benefit. It can contribute 2 types towards being delirious. So yeah, and these are obviously they've got high power anyway. They're just aggressive red-green creatures anyway, so they can just be swinging and do a whole bunch of damage. So we're going to talk about now what helps us win. So we've got 3 grab the prize. So 1 red for a sorcery, additional cost to cast a spell. You can discard a card, which is great. You can discard one of the cards you need to get towards delirium, and then you draw 2 cards. And if the discarded card wasn't a land card, it also does 2 damage to each opponent. So you can discard a non-land card, get a little bit of burn damage in there as well. So yeah, quite like grab the prize. Not a card draw spell. It's one of these standard like red like card selections. You are spending 2 cards to get 2 cards, but it's still doing a lot of what the deck wants to do, which is getting stuff into your graveyard for delirium. And then we've got 3 violent urges. So 1 red mana. A target creature gets +1/+0, gains first strike turn. But if you're delirious, it gets double strike instead, which is obviously a whole lot better. I've seen some people compare this to Temur Battle Rage, like from way back of Khans of Tarkir, which could give double strike just out of nowhere for very cheap. And that will win games, just giving something double strike, for 1 red mana at instant speed, absolutely. And with +1/+0 as well, which essentially with double strike is essentially +2/+0, really. So yeah, again, sort of perfectly fine combat trick on its own for 1 red, because that's Kindled Fury. But say with Delirium, it gets so much better. So yeah, had to include this. Really wanted that in there. Right, here we go. And then the goofy Altenac card, 4 copies of Say Its Name. So 1 in the green. You mill 3 cards, and then you return a creature or land card from your graveyard to your hand. It doesn't have to be one of the cards you milled, which is always something to bear in mind. And then you can exile this card and 2 other cards named Say Its Name from your graveyard. You search your graveyard, hand, and/or library of a card named Altenac and put it onto the battlefield like straight away. If you search your library, you shuffle, activate it as a sorcery. So yeah, had to include this. Like, it's such a goofy card. But I think it's just so much fun, right? And also, its effect lets you potentially find more copies of itself, and then you can do the ability where you exile 3 of them. I feel like you're obliged to say Altenac when you use it, and then get Altenac out for free, and then you've got like a big 9/9 trample. So yeah, even on its own, I think it's like, even with ignoring the effect where you could get Altenac on its out for not free, but you can get it out. I think it's a fairly solid card for 2 anyway, to mill 3, and then you just get a creature or land back into hand. The milling obviously helps you then get towards Delirious as well. So yeah, I think just a really fun, cute, goofy little card, honestly. And then we've got 4 Terramorphic Expanse, so you can sack it, search your library for basic. We all know what Terramorphic Expanse is, but it's good in here because it's a land that we can sacrifice, goes into a graveyard, and then obviously, again, it's contributing towards Delirium. This is the kind of the janky engine with Altenac, in that you can use Terramorphic, you get a land, it goes into the graveyard, use Altenac's ability to discard itself to get a land back, You can get Terramorphic back, do it again. So sort of thin your deck that way. Sort of like double dip on using Terramorphic Expanse. But yeah, again, felt like a good inclusion here as well to try and hit Delirium as quickly as possible. Right, now we're going to quickly talk about what stops them winning. So this is just like our removal options. So we've got 3 Betrayer's Bargain. So 1 red, additional cost to cast it, you have to sacrifice a creature or enchantment or pay 2. It does 5 damage to target creature. If the creature would die this turn, exile it instead. So we don't really mind sacrificing stuff in this deck again because we want to hit Delirium. But paying an extra 2 on this, like 4 mana to do 5 damage at instant speed that then exiles, is obviously not terrible. But obviously, we'd prefer to sacrifice something. I say, get the card types in the graveyard for Delirium, which makes all the other cards better. So yeah, this I think is a pretty solid little burn spell. And then 2 Vengeful Possession, just because I thought, the artwork's really fun. I just wanted to include it. So 2 in a red. It's an active treason effect, but also with a rummage effect, so you can discard and then draw. And again, that just helps get extra cards potentially into the graveyard for Delirium. But yeah, always nice to have a active treason effect. If at the very least, just get a blocker out of the way and then swing with something. Or even potentially, you Vengeful Possession, steal something, and then maybe sack it to Betrayer's Bargain or something like that, maybe. So yeah, always an option there. And then quickly talk about the mana base. So we had Terramorphic Expanse earlier, but we've also got 4 Bleeding Woods, which is the red-green Friday land, and then 8 Forests and 8 Mountains. So I'd love to know what you think about this deck. Do you like the Altenac combo, the Say Its Name? I really wanted to include that because I think it was such a fun card. It had to go in here as well. But what do you think of the return of Delirium? Because obviously the last time we had it was, I think it's actually been in a Modern Horizon set as well. I tell a lie, but it was mostly in Shadows of Innistrad. And I just don't think it was done particularly well in that set. But I feel like they've really nailed it this time. Like the set's been designed really, really well to enable it to get easy because you've got something like artifact creatures and enchantment creatures. So it's much easier to hit Delirium, I think. But yeah, I had a lot of fun putting this one together, and it's one that I'd actually quite enjoy playing because it's just also just a fairly good, I think, red-green aggro deck. But I'd love to know what you think. Stick a comment down below. I'll give it a read like I always do, and I'll be back next time with another one of these Duskmourn budget decks. So I hope you join me for that one. But until then, thanks for watching, listening, and have a great day.